to Srila Prabhupada. So thank you for joining in the discussion, the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are continuing with the glorification of Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 13, Dhṛtarāṣṭra quits home, and verse number 18 today. Again, it's a very beautiful, very instructive verse where Vidura starts instructing the old blind king Dhṛtarāṣṭra. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yenah Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So verse number 18. Vidurastad abhipretya dhṛtarāṣṭram abhāsata rajan nirgamyatam shigram pasyedam bhayamagatam. Vidurastad abhipretya dhṛtarāṣṭram abhāsata rajan nirgamyatam shigram pasyedam bhayamagatam. Vidurastad abhipretya dhṛtarāṣṭram abhāsata rajan nirgamyatam shigram pasyedam bhayamagatam. Does anyone want to read the word to word, the translation and the purport, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Sure.
Vidura, Mahatma Vidur, that abhipretya, knowing it well, Dhṛtarāṣṭram, onto Dhṛtarāṣṭra, abhāshata, said, Rajan, O king, nirgamyatam, please get out immediately, shigram, without the least delay, pashya, just see, idam, this, bhayam, fear, agatam, already arrived. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Mahatma Vidur knew all this, and therefore he addressed Dhṛtarāṣṭra, saying, My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken me. But a cruel death cares for none, be he Dhṛtarāṣṭra or even Maharaj Yudhishthira. Therefore, spiritual instruction, as was given to old Dhṛtarāṣṭra, was equally applicable to younger Maharaj Yudhishthira. As a matter of fact, everyone in the royal palace, including the king and his brothers and mother, was raptly attending the lectures. But it was known to Vidur that his instructions were especially meant for Dhṛtarāṣṭra, who was too materialistic. The word Rajan is specially addressed to Dhṛtarāṣṭra significantly. Dhṛtarāṣṭra was the eldest son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed on the throne of Hastinapur. But because he was blind from birth, he was disqualified from his rightful claim. But he could not forget the bereavement, and his disappointment was somewhat compensated after the death of Pandu, his younger brother. His younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhṛtarāṣṭra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the factual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons, headed by Duryodhana. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhṛtarāṣṭra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother-in-law Shatuni. But everything failed by the will of the Lord, and at the last stage, even after losing everything, men and money, he wanted to remain as king, being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhṛtarāṣṭra in royal honor, and Dhṛtarāṣṭra was happily passing away his numbered days in the illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthira. Vidur, as a saint and as a duty-bound, affectionate youngest brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from his slumber of disease and old age. Vidur therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, which he was actually not. Everyone else is the servant of eternal time, and therefore no one can be king in this material world. King means the person who can order. The celebrated English king wanted to order time and tide, but the time and tide refused to obey his order. Therefore, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly reminded of this false position and of the factual fearful happenings which had already approached him at the time. Vidur asked him to get out immediately if he wanted to be saved from the fearful situation which was approaching him fast. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthir in that way because he knew that a king like Maharaj Yudhishthir is aware of all the fearful situations of this flimsy world and would take care of himself in due course, even though Vidur might not be present at that time. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So this is, Prabhupada is giving us such a wonderful purport. We can understand that, yes, there are instructions given and we should take the instructions in the context. So translation again, Mahatma Vidur knew all this and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you." Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiriyet. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती भक्ति उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So here we see when Prabhupada writes the translation as Mahatma Vidur knew all this. So when we understand that Prabhupada is referring to, and here Sutta Goswami also is referring to the previous couple of verses where Vidura is noticing that yes, Yudhishthira is reigning peacefully, even though there are a lot of opulences, but is not attached. You know, everyone is happy, both materially and spiritually. And then he still sees that even though everything is nicely happening, but still then in the previous verse we saw, insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too attached to family affairs, right? So this instruction he is giving to Dhritarashtra. Now imagine a situation where, you know, an old man is living very comfortably in a house. You know, you can imagine even any modern situation where someone is living very happily, everyone is respecting that person, you know, and they're passing, as Prabhupada says, numbered days. And someone comes and the first sentence they say is, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you." Can you imagine that situation? But we can see here that this is the work of the scriptures. Vidura, Mahatma Vidur, he knows that Dhritarashtra, the meaning of the name itself is that he's holding on to everything. He's holding on to all the material opulences, you know, his kingdom. And as Prabhupada explains in the purport, that even though he is not the king, he is just being, you know, kept as a senior, as an elder, again, very charitably by Maharaj Yudhishthir. But he is still thinking, I am the king. And that's why Mahatma Vidur, as Prabhupada says, is sarcastically addressing Dhritarashtra as, "O king." So Dhritarashtra is someone who is holding on to his kingdom, even though he's not the official king. And on the other hand, we can see the name of Vidura. Vidura means someone who is wise. The Ved means knowledge, someone who has the knowledge. And he is, and he was the political advisor. Now, what gave Vidura the, sort of authority? We know that in Vedic scripture and Vedic etiquette, this text is, and this purport is very good to understand the Vedic etiquettes, various etiquettes. The first one is that in our society, when we have to correct someone, we need two things. We need influence and we need authority. So influence is because of our relationship. And here we see Vidur had relationship. He was a younger brother, but Dhritarashtra also knew that Vidura was very wise. And the other thing is we need is authority. It can be, normally it is the structural, the authority, the administrative authority. But even if you don't have the administrative authority, if you have a personal authority on a personal relationship basis, so if you have influence and authority, if you correct someone, that person will listen. But if you don't have either of them, if you just have the authority, the administrative authority, and if you don't have the influence, then that person will not listen to you. And if you just have the influence, but if you don't have the authority, even then, the words might not have that much effect. So Vidura realized that yes, the blind king, Dhritarashtra, was fast approaching the end of his life. And he's still living in spiritual ignorance. Just imagine, people are, going through life, they're approaching the end of life, but they're still blissfully unaware of their fate. They're living in spiritual ignorance. So what does Mahatma Vidura do? He's a compassionate soul. He's a very magnanimous soul. So he has come here. He wanted to instruct Dhritarashtra one last time in order to break his attachments to all the sense pleasures. And then Vidura finds an opportunity to speak to Dhritarashtra, and it's explained that everyone was hearing. It was not only that Dhritarashtra, he was just speaking quietly in a corner to Dhritarashtra. No, he was speaking these harsh words in front of everyone. So we can understand that yes, these are the words coming from the mouth of a self-realized devotee, and these instructions mean they are pregnant with so much instruction for all of us. But again, as Prabhupada says, that the context is different. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, because he is not attached to the opulences, these instructions were not meant for Yudhishthira Maharaj, but these instructions were meant only for Dhritarashtra. Now, another thing we have to learn here is that when he is speaking these very harsh words, he's actually, if you read the next 3 or 4 verses, just the translation, you will see, Mahatma Vidura actually goes on for next 10, 11 verses, just instructing Dhritarashtra and telling him that you are actually living a life of a dog and you are feeding on something which is thrown away by someone who you try to kill. Especially he mentioned the name of Bhima, because as you know, Dhritarashtra was very angry at Bhima because Bhima killed Duryodhana, his most favorite son. And Bhima also had equal anger towards Dhritarashtra. So by using the name of Bhima, Mahatma Vidur is actually using one more trick here. He's shaming Dhritarashtra, but at the same time, he's taking care of his self-respect by addressing him very nicely and by telling him, you are the king, my lord. If you see the next few verses, so Vidurji is using this technique also. Now, another thing we have to understand is, as I mentioned in the beginning, that someone who's living happily and someone else comes and starts, giving instructions that you must leave immediately. So how come Vidura had this authority? Because Vidura was fearless. Vidura was fearless. We can understand here that Vidura understands that this science of Krishna consciousness, of detachment from the material world, has to be told to Dhritarashtra. Please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you. So we can understand when we are also practicing our Krishna consciousness, we completely rely on the mercy of our Guru, mercy of the Vaishnavas, mercy of the spiritual master. But we must also understand that Krishna consciousness is a great science. And Vidurji, Mahatma Vidur, has understood this science. How? Because he has gone through the, in science, when we have to come to a conclusion, come to a theory, we have to go through the experiments. And Mahatma Vidur also has gone through the experiments during his travel. So when this science of Krishna consciousness presented to us is described and explained in Vedic literature, all the notes and records of all those devotees and who have gone through these experiences, have noted their experiences in these Vedic literatures. So Mahatma Vidur also, he has composed the science, he's composed these notes and records in caves and jungles, river banks, and whatever these revelatory experiences are there, these devotees have recorded for us, for the future generations. Now, Mahatma Vidur, because of his sincerity, because of his full surrender to Krishna, he has experienced this divinity. And this divinity has been awarded to Mahatma Vidur due to his sincerity and causeless mercy of Guru and Krishna, Uddhavji and Krishna himself. So that's why Mahatma Vidur is able to speak to Dhṛtarāṣṭra like that, in this tone, that get out from here. Why are you, staying here? Fear has overcome you. And as we know that, Dhṛtarāṣṭra is getting old. He is actually old. And Prabhupada very nicely explains in the 4th canto. It's a very wonderful story, an allegorical story of Puranjana, where he's trying to enjoy life, whereas time in the form of birth, death, old age, and disease is coming and harassing him constantly. And still he wants to enjoy. Still, for a long time, he doesn't come to his senses. Prabhupada, in the purport of one of the chapters in the 4th canto, he says very beautifully, he says the difference between the ordinary person and a devotee, because the devotee is understanding the situation that yes, these are the 4 miseries which we are going to go through. And for us, the same thing happens, that we understand that these are the 4 issues we have to go through: the birth, death, old age, and disease. So Prabhupada says there that Jara is, again in that allegorical story, Jara comes as a beautiful woman, and she says, yes, I'm going to be with you all the time. But Jara actually is the effect of the old age, as we know. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. So Jara is old age. So Prabhupada says that the effect of old age does not harass a devotee. Why? Because a devotee follows the instructions of Krishna coming through the parampara, coming through his devotees. And if we rigidly follow the instructions given by Krishna, given by our spiritual master, given by Prabhupada, we have no fear of old age. We have no fear of disease, no fear of death. We can grow old. A devotee will grow old, of course, but he is not subject to the symptoms of the defeat experienced by a common man. When a common man becomes old, he's fearful, like how Dhṛtarāṣṭra is fearful here. And the symptoms of defeat you can see, many times you see some old people, they become cranky, they become angry for no reason. But these things happen. And Prabhupada, on his deathbed, when he was hardly able to speak, he asked the devotees to bring the dictaphone close to his mouth. And then he said the most prophetic words to his young disciples. He said, don't think this is not going to happen to you. So even for all of us, whatever age we are at, we should understand that old age will come, Jara will come. But when we are, immersed in the science of Krishna consciousness, we will not experience the defeat experienced by common men in old age. And consequently, what happens is, no, old age does not make a devotee fearful of death. Actually, a common man is fearful of death. But when a devotee takes shelter of Krishna, then devotee embraces death. He's not afraid of that death. Why? Because he knows that after death, he's going back to Krishna. There's no fear of death anymore. So for us as devotees, instead of getting depressed by old age, advancing age actually helps us in becoming fearless and very happy. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj has given a very nice talk on how to gracefully become old, how to gracefully retire, how to gracefully age, like that. Very nice class, very, very simple theory, but very beautifully is explained that why a devotee does not accept the defeat when he's getting old. And we see so many examples, including our own Srila Prabhupada. He was not defeated by old age. Till the last day, he was fighting like Bhishma Deva. He was translating, he was giving instructions. So, we've one time, Vrajdeepika Mataji, she gave a very, she quoted one of the verses where the fear, where does the fear come from? So because we are materially attached, the fear comes from the attachment of all the material items. And this verse very beautifully, it gives us where does the fear come from. So I'll repeat that. I know we have heard that before, but it is nice to remind ourselves of where do we get the fear, and always keep reminding ourselves that I should not be attached to these things. So when we are enjoying sense pleasure, the fear of disease is there. Yes, because when we overdo something, we are attacked by disease. When we overeat something, next morning the stomach gives us trouble. So fear of disease is there in the enjoyment of sensual pleasure. Then if we are born in a very aristocratic family, there's a fear of decline in that my family lineage will go down with passing of time. Then someone who's very opulent, someone who's kingly, someone who's aristocratic, they are afraid that my riches will go away. When we are honored, there's a fear that humiliation will come, dishonor will come. But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for a devotee, there's no fear of honor or dishonor, fame or infamy. There's no fear. When one is in power, he is afraid of enemies. When one is very beautiful, one is fear of old age. When one is very knowledgeable, when one is learned, he is afraid of someone who's going to challenge his knowledge, of disputants. And when one is very virtuous, he is afraid of wicked people who are going to take advantage of his virtue. And when ultimately, when we are attached to the body, at the end, we are all fearful of death. So you can see that in every facet of life, we are afraid of some or the other things. So this way, the instructions of these wonderful souls make us understand that we should not be attached to these material things. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says very nicely, okay, so what do? We have all these things. We have opulences. We have house. We have, we have family. We have possessions. So what do? So Prabhupada says that, yes, we understand that this fear, where does the fear come from? So in the second canto, Prabhupada says very nicely, he says, in the material world, there will always be anxiety and fearfulness in the hearts of all living entities. Why? Because he says, the purport says clearly, he says, actually, if you understand, just think deeper, that our mundane existence is itself a kind of fear. If a devotee is there, if he's living under the protection of Krishna, there's no fear. But because we are living a life of mundane existence, there is a kind of fear, because in all mundane bodies, not in spiritual bodies, but in all mundane bodies, the effects of birth, death, old age, and disease always keep a living being giving fear. So this is the main problem, that when we are attached to the body and everything related to the body, all the opulences, then this fear comes. Now, in our situation, we know the instruction is given to Dhṛtarāṣṭra here that, leave the house immediately, leave the kingdom immediately. But we cannot, leave our homes now. Prabhupada didn't recommend that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur very nicely says, he gives a solution in his bhajan, Gai Gaura Madhurasware, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So in that bhajan, he says very nicely, Grihe thako bane thako, sada hari bole dako, sukhe dukhe bole nako, vadane hari nam ko rore. He says, Grihe thako bane thako. Whether you are a householder or a sannyasi, what do? Sada hari bole dako. Dako means to call the Lord. Sada hari bole dako. So you always constantly chant the name of Hari, Hari, Hari. Sukhe dukhe bhule nako. So whether you are in a happy condition or you are in a distressful condition or difficult condition. Bhule na ko, you never forget. Do not forget this chanting. So in our household life also, we are in Griha. In our household life, we can always, whether a good situation or a bad situation, we can follow this instruction here, right? Vadane harinam korore. That means just fill your lips with the holy name. So this way, if you take this instruction very nicely, that yes, I am in a household life, I have to live here, do my duties, but at the same time, I can live my life peacefully without fear by chanting the holy names. We know we are all getting old, and I want to tell a story where, you might have heard this story before. One time, one, like elderly lady, she was doing her household work. She was very happy, again, attached to all the household life. And suddenly she sees Yamadutas in front of her. And Yamadutas are here to take her away. And she says, "Who are you?" She says, "I'm a Yamaduta, come to take you away because your time has come. Today is your time." So lady says, "No, no, 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 no. Everyone who comes here, they give notice. So you have to give me some notice that you're coming. I can be prepared like that." Yamaduta says, "No, no, 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 no one gets notice, man. People, we just come and take you away." So she said, "Please, please, please." So Yamaduta had some compassion for her. And they said, "Okay, we will give you notice. And then you have to come with us when we come back." So this woman again said, "Okay, give me notice and I'll be ready." So time passed, but this woman again became attached to the household life. Slowly, old age came. She was elderly anyway. Old age came, and the Yamadutas came again. And the lady said, "Hey, hey, you came again, but you didn't give any notice." Yamaduta smiled. They laughed at her, and he said, "Not one. We gave you 4 notices, and we know what those 4 notices are, right? Many of us have got notices already. I have got all the maybe 3 or 4, 3 of the 4 notices already. So I have to be very careful." The ladies asked, "What notice you have given us?" So his first notice was that your hair became white. You had nice black hair. Your hair became white, and then you started coloring them. You started dyeing them. So you didn't take any heed of that notice. Second notice was your eyesight became weak, and then you put up nice contact lenses to still remain beautiful, and you didn't take notice of that notice also. The third notice was your teeth started to disappear, and you got some nice white artificial dentures, and you did not worry about that notice also. And the fourth notice was you started to hunch. You started to, like, your body started to bend, and then you didn't take notice of that also. So 4 notices I gave you. Now it's time for you to come with me. So this way, my dear devotees, we have also got some notices in each of us. I don't know. But as I said, I've got at least 3 notices. So I have to be a lot more careful. Another instruction we can understand here, that how the same instruction is given, and everyone is hearing, as Prabhupada says, with rapt attention, right? But as Prabhupada says, the instruction is not for Yudhishthir Maharaj, not for the other relatives, because they were all detached, but it's only for Dhṛtarāṣṭra. So similarly, when we can understand, when we also get instructions, I wanted to just mention this because we also get many, many instructions. So we have to use our intelligence. Rupa Vilas Prabhu gives us a guide here. Rupa Vilas Prabhu is a very wonderful devotee. He writes books on Vaishnava saints. He's written a very nice series of books on Vaishnava saints. And in his book, Without Fear, which is written about Prabhupada, that, Prabhupada was a fearless soldier in the army of Lord Chaitanya. So he writes that when Prabhupada gives, a statement, he makes a statement, he says, it would seem that Prabhupada's opinions fall into at least 3 categories. So you have to understand that when someone says Prabhupada said, it is not that, so you have to use our intelligence. And he says that Prabhupada's opinions fall into at least 3 categories. First is his personal tastes. Second is his personal opinions. And third is absolute statements based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So, for example, Prabhupada used to like Kerala very much, right? So he'll always glorify Kerala. He'll always, appreciate Kerala at uh, the bitter taste, which is one of the 6 tastes which should be included in our food, right? And also for the health aspect. So, do you think that if someone doesn't appreciate the taste of Kerala, and this lack of appreciation of Kerala is a defect? No, that's not the way you see it. That was Prabhupada's personal taste. Then you come to Srila Prabhupada's personal opinion. So Prabhupada, would have expressed an opinion about something, right? So some devotees will say, okay, based on that time, place, and circumstances, Prabhupada's opinion stands. But some devotees might say, no, the context has changed. So, you might, take a different opinion. So here there is a little bit of, we have to allow some controversy here. Some intelligence has to be used. Of course, the staunch devotees who are followers of Prabhupada, staunch followers, they will argue that anything what Prabhupada has said, if you are diverting from that, it's a dangerous concoction, it's a deviation from the order of the spiritual master. So the question comes, when are those changes authorized and when they are not? Who can determine that? So we will leave that discussion for times to come to sort out. And the third one is, of course, when Prabhupada gives his orders based on the Shastra and the predecessor acharyas, then such orders have to be followed without change or without any question. So there's no, use of intelligence. You just follow it very strictly. So this way we can understand that when instructions are coming, we have to follow these instructions according to what the context is. So I've gone over the limit. Please forgive me. I wanted to just end this class with a wonderful prayer. This prayer is actually again a question by, not a question, it's a statement by Mother Devhuti in the 3rd canto. And I want to pray that may, for all of us, our work elevate us to religious life. Our religious life elevate us to renunciation. Our renunciation lead to devotional service to the Lord. And this way, we can make our work as a devotional service. So if we pray like that, even if we live in a normal household life, we chant Hare Krishna all the time, our life becomes successful by following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Does anyone want to share any questions, doubts, reflections, comments? Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
You used a word Zara. Can you explain it a little more?
So Jara in Sanskrit means old age. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. So Janma, as you know, birth, Mrityu is death, Jara is old age, and Vyadhi is disease. So these are the 4 miseries of material life where, we have to face these no matter what. But if we are following devotional service, then even the body becomes old, but because we are engaged in devotional service, we don't feel that much pain of old age. Does it make sense, Prabhu? They say pain is compulsory, but suffering is optional. So when we are old age, pain will be there, but suffering depends on our consciousness. So that's optional. Anyone else? Anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can I please have the canto and which chapter from the prayer of Devhuti Mata?
323.56. That's just as a statement she makes that, our work should elevate us to religious life. Religious life should elevate us to renunciation, and renunciation should elevate us to devotional service. But if it happens, without these steps, then it's better, of course. We can take up to devotional service directly. Anyone else? Any question? Any comments? Okay, wonderful. May you have a wonderful devotional day. Tomorrow morning, we'll see you at 6:30, Krishna willing, again to do this service of glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dhṛtarāṣṭra Prabhu ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.